Switch. The Switch is a podcast about ideas and experiences that change our minds. I'm Chase Harris, joined as always by my co-host, Alex Berner. In this episode, we speak with Cody and Rose Sklar. Cody has lived his entire life with severe food allergies. Rose is his mother. Cody is a student at University of Miami and recently started a company called Wander Without Worry. It is the world's first allergy-friendly meal delivery service. In this conversation, we talk about what it's like to have severe food allergies from the perspectives of both Cody and his mother, Rose. We talk about the current state of food allergy awareness, legislation, and research, and about Cody's company and mission.
If you like what we do here on The Switch, the best way to support us is through Patreon. For as little as $1, you can become part of the community, ask us questions, suggest topics, and directly communicate with us. You can also unlock bonus content like extra questions we ask our guests. If you want more of The Switch, both on topic and off, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com/switch_podcast.
You can also support us by rating and reviewing on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you listen to us. If you want to connect with us on social media, we're on Instagram and Twitter at switch_podcast, and on Facebook, we are The Switch Podcast. So, without further delay, our conversation with Cody and Rose Sklar.
And with that, I'd like to welcome Cody Sklar and Rose Sklar. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here.
So, Cody, I just wanted to start out with your story. You have severe anaphylactic food allergies, correct?
Of course, yes.
And yeah, could you tell us when you first found that out? What was it like growing up with that? What was your childhood like? Just start us at the beginning.
Well, I definitely think my mom could answer that for me better because I wasn't truly, there to, understand it because I was so young. But I've had it since birth, and it was a problem since the beginning. So I had an episode right when I was born, and I had a spinal tap, and I ate the Hershey Kiss off the floor during Halloween when I was 8 or 9 months old. Went straight to the hospital. So I'm glad to be alive, honestly. The reason I'm here is because of my mom.
That's right.
I don't know if my dad could have I don't know if my dad could have done all the hard work. He was but my mom did so much for me, and the fact that I'm here on this podcast is a testament of the work that she did to make sure that I didn't die, to be totally honest.
Yeah, Rose, how did that start out? How did you find out that Cody had severe food allergies?
Well, since he is my second child, it was pretty obvious to me the day he was born. Everything went fine until a few hours into being in the hospital room, waiting for them to bring him to me. And the doctor came to me and said, "Your son had an episode." And I had no idea what that meant. So I later figured it out that I think what must have happened is they probably gave him a bottle in the nursery. I found out later that he had severe food allergies. It didn't really turn up right away because I did nurse him for 9 months. Mm-hmm. And breast milk is obviously the best for babies, and it probably helped him make it through those early months. The next big step was when he was about 6 weeks old. I was hanging out with my neighbor, and both of our babies happened to have a number 2 movement. So we were kind of comparing diapers when I realized that his diaper didn't look normal like my daughter's had. It wasn't the same consistency. In fact, it looked like he had mucus in his diaper. So I decided, because he's 21 now and we didn't have iPhones back then, that I took the dirty diaper to the doctor. And when I showed it to them the next day, he did say, "That's not normal." Mm-hmm. So we went from there, and my doctor was pretty bright up in New Jersey at the time. And he said to me, "It looks like a milk allergy. Let's change formulas." He was not on formula. So he told me to completely stop milk, which I did. And that worked for a while, but he was very, very colicky, which I attributed to a lot of babies are colicky. So I didn't really know that most of the foods that I was eating, he was getting through my milk.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
but he was not anaphylactic at the time because breast milk obviously breaks down the proteins that people are
Mhm.
allergic to, such as there's a milk protein called casein. There's an egg protein called albumin. There's like all food groups have a protein, and that was really what he was allergic to.
Mhm.
I found out later when I really figured out what was really going on was probably Halloween of the first year of his life. He wasn't quite one. My daughter had gone trick or treating, and he must have found a chocolate Hershey Kiss on the ground. I don't know. I don't remember. All I know is he turned into a monster. His eyes were oozing at the white. His lips were swelling. He was covered in hives. We called the ambulance. I had no idea what was going on. I really never had heard of anaphylactic shock, but I found out. The ambulance came. They strapped me in with him. He was probably about 8, 9 months old. And that's the day I found out that he had
Mhm.
anaphylactic food allergies. So that's when we started on our trip down the road to trying to figure out exactly what he could or could not eat, which was very, very difficult for me. That was back in 1993. I had never heard of anybody in my life that had a peanut allergy. I didn't know of anybody with a milk allergy. I've heard of milk intolerances and, lactose intolerance, that type of thing. But I had never
Mhm.
really known anybody with a true allergy like that because it really wasn't common at the time.
Mhm. And that's one of the reasons we want to have you on as well, because I'm sure Cody doesn't remember when he was 1, but Cody, what was your first memory of having a reaction or realizing that you had something that was different about you?
It's a great question. I mean, the thing that pops in my head first and foremost is I remember when I think I was maybe like 2, maybe 1.5. I'm not completely sure, but I was at the kitchen table and we lived in New Jersey in a freehold, and my mom made me this cereal with rice milk instead of obviously like dairy or like soy milk and stuff like that. And she was saying very specifically, "Oh, like this is Cody's food." And then my sister Paige was like, "I don't get it. What do you mean? Why is it Cody's food? It's special." And at that moment, I kind of put the two together. Like, wait, like I can't eat like these other kids or everyone around me. And I realized down the line, if I had another reaction, like I realized it was because I ate something that was not Cody approved or was not Cody friendly.
Yeah, those are the
So like from a
words.
very young age, like I had to, like mature, I had to make those decisions. And, I was always the boy who couldn't eat my own birthday cake. And I learned that from a very, very young age. So
Yeah, what was that like growing up? Was it hard to deal with other kids? What was your childhood like?
I mean, I had a very interesting childhood. And again, my mom probably knows this better than I do, but they thought I was autistic until the age of 3 or 4. I couldn't speak until I was 4. And it was all because of my allergies, and I couldn't speak, and I was inflamed, and, they put me in the wrong classes, and I was mimicking the other kids. And, but to go off that, I mean, it was definitely hard in the beginning. It was very hard until I realized it was a blessing in disguise, because it's taught me everything about compassion and empathy, and really wanting, like, really understanding people and their struggles. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, honestly, growing up that way.
So I have a cousin who has severe food allergies, and
Hmm.
we'll start to talk about certain therapies and things later. But
Yeah.
he, as far as I remember, is allergic to milk, eggs, mustard, peanuts, and tree nuts. And seeing him grow up, I saw some of these similar experiences. You were talking about having Cody's food,
Yeah.
and even the language is the same. But one of the things that struck me was how at family gatherings, whether it was at someone's house or at a restaurant or whatever, um, he would always either have to eat beforehand his own food or, bring his own food if that was even appropriate. There were certain times where like he literally could not be putting food in his mouth at the same time as other people because of the contents of the food around him, and like I can't imagine what that would
Yeah.
do psychologically to a little kid.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's again like that's my entire life. That's what it's been, and that's what you're talking is airborne allergens. Back then, my allergens were extremely airborne. Again, my mom could attest for that. Going on the plane, there's peanuts served, all those things. But of course, it takes a toll on you. But and especially when you're young, of course it does. But I had the best parents who, taught me that, yeah, like you have this one little difference, but it's not, like they've taught me that it delineates me in a good way. And I kind of use it as my like strength, almost like my maverick. And
Right.
So yeah, what foods are you allergic to? Do you have the list?
Oh yeah, I mean, I can pull it off of my phone, but I pretty much have it in my head. I've gained some, I've lost some, which is good news for a lot of people, and also scary because actually when I was debating a bill for food allergy awareness in Florida, there's statistics out there, a lot of statistics that say like every 6 to 8 years you can lose allergies, so you never know, when you can get one, a sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, what was your question again? To restate that.
What's the list of food allergies?
The list, that's why it got me messed up. So right now, currently, I am allergic to dairy. I'm allergic to soy, shellfish, seafood, peanuts, tree nuts, sesame, coconut, lentils, peas, garbanzo beans, strawberries, and coffee, and gluten. The most important
But not
one.
anaphylactic.
But I'm not anaphylactic or celiac, but I am pretty sensitive in terms of an intolerance, so I just stay away.
Anaphylactic to peanut and nut and sesame.
Yeah, and sesame. Yeah.
The rest are just severe.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you were a kid, did you have reactions?
Oh yeah.
Like severe anaphylactic reactions?
First one
Times that
at 9 months.
Yeah. First one was at 9 months. And
wow.
From there, I mean, like picking petals off the flower,
yeah.
It wasn't as common as it sounds, like, hey, like every other month or every other week I'm having one, but they reduced significantly as I became older, because there are instances where, for example, my mom dropped me off at a gymnastic camp and someone spilled coffee on me that had milk in it, and that was enough to send me into shock. Like, it was crazy.
Wow.
So
The scary thing is that people didn't really understand. I would say he has severe allergies. They spilled coffee on him, but it was cold. I go, yes, but there's milk in it. And that he's severely allergic to milk. They just had no clue. They have no awareness of the severity that makes a difference, that he's touch allergic.
Mm-hmm.
They thought I was just crazy, that I was making it up.
So what are food allergies and where do they come from?
that is the $1 million question. They still, when I say they, scientists, doctors, everyone, that's what everyone is, trying to figure out. There's no proof, like they've come close, they have, like, or immunotherapy, like stuff like that to like desensitize you, but nothing is truly valid yet. And the cure is being found, like sought after. But a food allergy technically is you take a normal protein, let's say a peanut, right? Like protein, and you put in your body. Basically, your body will view it as something that's like a foreign invader, almost like a disease or something. So your body will produce histamine. The histamine will, attack the foreign invader. But the result of histamine is that it can close your airways because histamine just keeps, multiplies. And that's why you have antihistamines like Benadryl, which for less severe cases, of course, like they're going to help. You have allergic reaction, take some Benadryl, that's the common saying. But if you have a severe allergic reaction like anaphylaxis, you need to have epinephrine, you need to go to the hospital, you can relapse. It's very scary stuff. So if you do have a severe food allergy, you have to make sure you're always carrying an EpiPen. It is, or an AviQ. It's so important. Yeah.
But before we get too far into some of the science, Rose, I wanted to ask you what it's like to be a parent of someone with food allergies, and like what are the challenges that, other than some of the ones we've already outlined, what are the challenges of dealing with food allergies, as a parent?
Well, it's very difficult. There's a lot of logistics involved. When he was younger, I always had to prepare food in advance. Yes, he would eat before he went to a party, or I would have to prepare his own breads, baked goods. I had to keep all the utensils and the pots and pans separated from the rest of the home. We had to, it's just very challenging with other people who don't understand how severe. I would go to a party and they'd have like peanut M&Ms out, and I would have to like survey the entire house and tell my friends, you gotta get rid of these peanuts or cashews or whatever it was, So what ended up happening is I just liked having everybody at my home. Like he would invite his friends over. I was buying Del Vecchio's pizza for everybody just so he would be safe. I was going on every school trip through his school so that he could go because nobody wanted responsibility for the EpiPen. Nobody could give the Benadryl. Everyone was afraid to feed him. So I would just go. I was also a school mom. I was always at the parties. I was in the PTA. I would provide snacks that he could eat for everybody else. It gets very expensive, but at least he's safe. Mm-hmm. And that was worth it to me. As long as he's safe and he felt included with other kids, I was doing my job because psychologically, Cody has done tremendously well. I don't know if the other kids have done as well with the challenges that he has. It's not just challenging in, I can't eat that or let me see the ingredients. It's also, you don't fit in, you look different. People are mean. They were bullying him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, come on, it's not really real, but it really is, and it's very dangerous.
Were there resources like to help you at all, and did you know other families that had food allergies, things like that?
Well, back in 1993, I absolutely know nobody.
Right.
The only organization that I could find, which was on our very antiquated, prehistoric internet that we had back then, was called Food Allergy and Anaphylaxis, which is now called Food Allergy Research and Education. It's they changed names because a lot of people didn't understand the anaphylaxis. A lot of people don't even know what that is. It's amazing how many people have never heard of it. I mean, even at my age, I'm in my 50s, and people are like, well, what's that? Yeah. But there was very few resources. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of cooking. I reached out to my doctors. They really didn't even have all the answers. I mean, they make mistakes too. You can't just trust everybody. They're not always right. They make mistakes too. And I've got a lot of interesting things I can talk about that I learned a lot. People think I'm medical because of how much I know and how much I've read and researched because it's my child.
Yeah. What do you think would be like the number one piece of advice to parents who have a child with food allergies or just beginning that sort of journey of raising someone with food allergies?
Oh, that's a good question. Have hope. There is help. You're not alone. There are a lot of new organizations that you can join. I think it's important to do so, because you feel alone in the beginning. There are recipes online. There are products available all over the internet. It's a lot easier today in 2018 than it was back in 1993. You've got Enjoy Life cookies, so you don't have to worry anymore that your child can go to a party, pack them some cookies. It's okay. They're going to be all right. Just try to stay positive, empower your child. Don't make them feel like a victim because they need to learn how to, they have to deal with the deck they've been dealt. Yeah. You can't fix it. So it's like any other autoimmune. I mean, diabetics carry insulin. Anaphylactic children carry epinephrine and Benadryl, and they have to eat a specific way, and that's their life, and they have to own it.
So you said there's no fix, but are there treatment? What are the treatment options and therapy options? Like Cody, I know you did a Candida diet. So what's the process of figuring out, okay, I have food allergies. What do I do about it to make my life easier or just help me not die?
For sure. That's an important part. So actually, with the Candida cleanse diet, basically it took a lot of things. I basically did an elimination diet, to put it simply, where I would keep staples in my diet, like some protein, some carbs, etc. And I would reintroduce new things, whether it was like gluten. That's what I found out. I think I was either 14 or 15. I actually had to sit out my second semester of sophomore year, take all of my classes online, take my AP exams after all that, etc. And basically I did an elimination diet where I would try something for a couple of days, and if I reacted, I'm clearly allergic or sensitive, and did that for a couple of months and found out I had more allergies, and also working with doctors, of course, to be safe, to make sure nothing went wrong. But I just did the elimination diet, and I did sensitivity tests. I think it was called an ALCAT, I believe, and I
Yes,
found some other
Alcott test.
ALCAT testing, yes, and found out about a lot of other things I was sensitive to, and for example, strawberries were one that I couldn't believe, but I was very, very sensitive to that, so cut that out of my diet. So those were things that really, really helped me out. I got back to school, great grades, happy, just everything was going well, because I found out there were actually things I didn't even know that I was still reacting to, because I already thought I had enough, but of course, bring it on.
Yeah. How do you think that shaped your outlook on life? Growing up with that, what effect has that had on you?
I mean, there are times where you're for example, I could even bring this to today, where you're at the grocery store and you're looking at, the vegan cheeses to see, hey, maybe they changed their ingredients. Maybe it doesn't have coconut or pea protein or something like that. But, and you can get, frustrated. But growing up specifically, it bothered me again at very little moments. But I think it helped me become a leader, maybe become who I am today. And I just really feel like it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it gave me a voice for the voiceless in a sense, and made me truly have to stand up for myself and, to cope with these things. And I just, as I've said earlier, I just can't imagine my life any other way. And yeah.
Are there, I'm still curious about treatment options. What are some of the other treatment options in the sphere of food allergies, stuff you have or haven't tried?
Well, I could take that over, Cody. They have some testing where they actually give you the allergen, very small, tiny, minuscule pieces. We never went that route because, people can react and have an anaphylactic reaction. And, we talked about it, and Cody said, I really don't need to eat peanuts. I really don't care. His IEG, they rate your blood. Okay. It's 1 to 6, the way we did it. 6 being the worst, which is over 100%. His entire life, he was way over 100%, and we knew we were never going to touch it. We didn't even bother to skin test him after a while. There was just no reason to do it. We knew he was touch allergic. So I kind of avoided that. There's another thing called NAET, which is kind of a functional type of way of getting rid of your allergies. Again, we looked into it. Some people believe in it. It's a little different approach. I didn't really believe in it, and I think you really need to, where they actually press on a part of your body, a muscle, and you're holding the allergen in a jar. I mean, I'm not going to say this is like a quack thing, but some of it I just couldn't understand how this could really work. And, some people do it and maybe their allergies aren't as severe.
Yeah.
I have some allergies, but mine aren't bad enough. I'm not breaking out in hives. I'm not, running to the bathroom. I'm not vomiting. So maybe somebody I might try something like that. Maybe it would work. I don't know. I've heard of things like that. There's a lot of, other types of protocol that you can do. Obviously, the elimination diet, I think, is the strongest one. It actually worked. I mean, Cody, he began to gain weight. He actually grew after we eliminated gluten, which did not show up in the allergy testing. It wasn't in the blood work, which was very odd. But again, a lot of these tests have false positives, false negatives. The doctor always says, sometimes you got to listen to the mother and the patient and kind of go with your, the gut of, is there a reaction happening? Because some of these reactions are latent. They happen 2-3 days later, and you have no idea which food you ate is causing the issue. So it's a lot of trial and error.
Is there a genetic link for food allergies? Like you mentioned that you have allergies, even if they're not as severe. Is there evidence it's a genetic thing?
I believe so. I mean, I know for a fact that my mom, as a young child, had a milk allergy, but it was not as severe. And, sometimes what I believe as a mother who's, raised a now 21-year-old severely allergic son, that, the allergies have been getting worse. And I tend to believe it has something to do with the food source. It could be the GMOs, the genetically modified foods that we eat. I know that there's a lot of hormones in our meats. I wonder about the vaccinations. And I always just wondered, Cody did react to the vaccinations because a lot of the vaccinations out there, the MMR and any of the vaccinations you give your children, including the flu shot, contain egg. A lot of people wouldn't know that. So if you're going to go inject that into your baby and they're allergic to eggs, you're going to have a reaction. And some of these kids, I mean, it could be pretty bad. I don't advocate not getting, those type of immunizations. You do need them, but there is a way to give them. If you do have a child that has severe food allergies, you can actually separate the measles, mumps, and rubella into 3 different shots, which is what I did, to get rid of the preservatives. So it could very well have something to do with that genetically. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. That's just kind of something that I think about a lot.
So the reason I wanted to bring up the food allergies as an episode is because it's something when I realized how much of an impact it has on somebody's life and how an action that I do or a way that I live could severely, impact somebody's life. It could potentially be fatal to them or, cause a reaction. When I realized that there's just small things that I could do to help prevent that, it was just a big, kind of awakening for me in terms of being aware of how I treated food and other people regarding food. And that the changes you can make that can really help are not very, it's not a drastic thing. It's something like asking. So
Absolutely.
What are some of the biggest things that people can do to help or be aware of in their interaction with people with food allergies?
That's an incredible question. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of things that can be done beforehand, especially dealing with a friend who who has food allergies. So the probably the top example for me would be if my friend was coming to hang out with me and, previously, let's say they had like a Snickers bar, like peanut butter, like my best friends, they love that. And, good for them. Looks really good. So the best thing that they would do is, either wash their hands or brush their teeth even before they were around me, or they would ask me, hey, like I just ate this, like, is that okay? Like, what should I do? Or even if they were there and they brought it with them, they're like, hey, look, I brought this Snickers bar. Like, are you okay? Like, can I eat this around you? And most of the time with that, it's like, no, but here, let's get something else. Or if, what is it called? So yeah, just basically it's just the awareness of it. Like the fact if they ask like, hey, like, are you okay with this? If it was something like Funyuns with like dairy or something, like that's not something that I'm going to react to like crazily, like a Snickers bar with like peanut butter, stuff like that. So that just asking in general is such an important thing. And let's say if you're going out to dinner with your friends and, they're like, hey, like, let's go to this restaurant, but wait, let's make sure Cody, like, if he can eat there, if he feels comfortable, they'll always tell me in advance, or I'll ask, or I usually just plan it. I've become a facilitator. It's, part of having allergies, you got to be very proactive. So they would tell me, hey, we're going to eat at this restaurant. I would call, I tell them my, the necessary accommodations that I would need. And if I felt comfortable enough that, hey, we can make this work and, settle the cross contact, which basically is, let's say you have the same stove and, you're cooking shrimp and you're cooking steak on it and they're used for both, that would be a no-go for me because the proteins they're probably not going to be washed off properly. And, it takes such a minuscule amount of protein from your allergen to trigger a reaction, especially if you're anaphylactic. So just questions like that and just being proactive, it's like always asking. That's the main thing. You always have to ask. And all of my friends exhibit that. And, I'm deeply appreciative of that.
Mm-hmm. If someone does start to have a reaction, are Are there things that people could or should do to assist? I mean, the obvious might be like,
Of course.
if they're unable to help themselves, call 911. But what are some of the other steps that people need to understand?
Absolutely. And of course, that's the first thing. Always you want to call 911 because they have the immediate help for sure. But definitely ask, try to assess the situation. Don't just start doing CPR right away. We're not a lot of people are, certified for that. So first and foremost, like try to assess the situation. Like ask like, hey, are you okay? What are you feeling? What's going on? If they're visibly telling you, hey, like I'm having an allergic reaction, I have anaphylaxis. Usually you are okay enough to administer it yourself. I've done it before. But you still want to make sure like they are functional, they are okay. Benadryl, if it's not as severe, if they're still able to talk and whatnot, Benadryl is definitely, good to get in your body. It's an antihistamine. If it's not as severe, it usually does the job. But if it goes past that threshold and it is anaphylactic, I mean, your life it could be in seconds and minutes. Like you lose oxygen, you can die that way. It's like drowning. It's scary. I've been close in that, and it's not a fun time. But once you get that epinephrine in, it really, really, it's almost the best way to explain it is like 1 second you're drowning, and then the second you feel like you're running a marathon, like full sprint. So the best thing to do realistically is assess the situation, see the severity of it. If usually there is Benadryl somewhere around, even if there's a CVS, etc. And if it's really severe, of course, like find a way to administer that epinephrine if it's available, because that decision could be life or death right there.
Yeah.
How long do you have, like, with an anaphylactic reaction?
I mean, the numbers realistically vary. Like, there's no study done saying how much, but in my experience, like, it's 5-10 minutes. Like, you should be very, very proactive, because think of it, like, if you're having that anaphylactic reaction and your throat's already closing, like, you're without oxygen for like 5-10 minutes, you could become brain dead. There's just so many repercussions of that.
Yeah, what are the longer lasting effects of having a anaphylactic shock?
In what sense?
Like, are you sick afterwards? Does it give you put a strain on your body?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember I think it was in 8th grade, I had actually exercise-induced anaphylaxis. I was playing basketball, and out of nowhere, and it was the scariest thing, because like I'm playing basketball, I had like a chicken soup. I didn't think I was allergic to anything in it. Still not sure to this day what it was. So that's one thing about, you never know when it's going to happen, so always be prepared. So I was in the bathroom, I couldn't feel my throat, went to the hospital, had the epinephrine, and for the next day, 2 days, possibly even 3 days, I was just gassed. Like I don't know, like when I was young, I probably didn't know what it meant. Mm-hmm. But oh my God, I couldn't do anything. And my throat was itchy, my stomach was just ripped apart, and I was just the weakest I've probably ever felt in my life.
Can I interject something here? Because as a mom, something I just thought of that's very important. The day that happened to Cody, he was at the YMCA, playing basketball, and he didn't feel well. So he went into the bathroom, and he was alone, and he called me, and I said, get out of the bathroom, because he could have just passed out right there. No one was around. So it's actually really important that if you're not feeling well, you go find people, because if it gets that bad. Number 2 is a lot of people don't know how to administer an EpiPen, but there's a new EpiPen out called the AvaQ, and it actually talks you through it, tells you exactly where to put it, how long to hold it. Sometimes you need 2. Everything's explained, but I remember telling Cody, please go find people. That way, if you fall down, somebody's going to see you. If you're in a bathroom, like you're embarrassed or whatever. I'm so glad he called me, because that could have gone pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and better embarrassed than dead.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
So, Rose, what was that like to have Cody go through that, like that specific instance?
It's obviously very scary. He's always been a scary child. Very adventurous. I'm talking, this kid is brave, which scared me so much. But, I remember when he called me, and I knew right away something was wrong. I could tell by the sound of his voice. Like when you go into that type of a reaction, you actually start losing your voice, because your throat is tightening, And he's like, what should I do? And I'm like, you need your EpiPen. And guess what? He didn't have it that day. And I think after that he knew. And I said, oh my God. I think his dad, I forget what we did. I think actually we were really close by. We lived very close. We're very lucky. And we took him right to the closest hospital, which this was our first. We didn't call the ambulance, which we should have, but at the time we drove him right to the hospital, took him right in, and they administered the epinephrine. And then I realized, oh my God, he's got to carry this with him. This is ridiculous. And he didn't want to carry it because EpiPens look kind of funny. They're very long and they look like a big pencil. And I guess he was, I don't know how old, but people don't want to carry those around, but they have to. Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of contraptions that you could wear. Remember the one around your leg, Cody, that lady gave you? You would wrap it around your leg under your pants so nobody would see it, because a lot of kids are embarrassed to carry it and it's ridiculous. So we've got the new AviQ, and you can actually put it in your wallet, which is great. It fits in your back pocket. It's small, but it is very scary. In fact, every time the school would call, my heart would drop. The school learned to tell me, Cody's okay. Everything's okay, because my heart would drop to my feet every time the school called, the elementary school, the middle school, the high school. He was having reactions his entire life. And we would constantly get phone calls until finally I released him into college, and he said, Mom, it's my turn. And I said, okay, hands off. It was extremely difficult. He did have some reactions at college. He did go kind of close to us. I'm going off on a tangent here, but the reason he chose to go closer to home was really partially because my heart, I don't think I could take him being further away where I couldn't get to him if he needed me. So, and sure enough, it worked out, and I let him go, and he's been doing fantastic.
Yeah, Cody, what's that transition been like to, I'm sure it happened over the years, but to really take total responsibility for yourself for the allergies?
Yeah, I mean, it really changed dramatically once, I went to college and everything, but the change was almost natural for me because I had my mom almost as like a hovering like helicopter, always like, are you okay? Text me when you're home. Text me like, did you eat this or that? And it would get a little, like a little too much, but naturally it kind of dissipated once I made that transition. And of course, like I've had a couple reactions along the way, but I've learned from most of them. Some of them were just completely out of my control. I like to call it like Russian roulette of food allergies. Sometimes it happens. Mm-hmm. But of course I was prepared, epinephrine, everything like that. But it was a very natural transition, and it was made possible because my mom had full faith in me. And I feel like if I didn't have a parent that, truly trusted me to, like with everything that I was equipped with and, the parenting and whatnot, that it could have been harder. And yes, I am, close to home with my school. Like, I mean, I'm around like an hour away, so not like, right there, but it is nice to know, like, you always have that, your family there just in case something does go wrong, because in my case, like, it can go wrong very, very very quickly as well. So,
yeah. So just give me a little bit about the life of being in college. So do you eat out? How do you manage it and keep yourself safe, but also not, still be kind of exploratory,
No, absolutely. So I tried it in the beginning with the dining hall. Most people are probably right about their assumptions of the dining hall, about the food quality. It's not the best in the world, but it's even worse for people who have food allergies. I remember being assured, I have gluten-free pasta with red sauce. And I asked them, hey, did you change the pan? Did you do this and that? And, of course, they're like, yeah, we did. And, I asked again, and of course, I kept getting the right answers, but, like I would get it and there'd be like a piece of shrimp in there. And like, that was it. Like I couldn't deal with that. And I told my friends, I'm so sorry, I can't. And my first year of college, that was 100% the hardest year because not only was I in a long distance relationship, for example, I was not at the dining hall. I was keeping my grades up. I was just focused on the 4.0 and all that good stuff. And like I definitely missed out that first year on more, like meeting people in terms of like eating out and things like that. And that first year I was cooking in my dorm out of a crock pot. I lived off Chipotle. Chipotle is incredible for people with food allergies, by the way. if you do ask, they can go in the back and, you know, especially prepare it for you. And that's something I am extremely grateful for. I also, you know, I cooked for myself, whether it's from my crock pot or I found a friend who had a kitchen, you know, stuff like that, brought my own stuff. It got way better the next year though, because I moved into an apartment, you know, by myself, which was, at first I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be so lonely. This is crazy. I'm like 19, all these things, or 18 actually. And I went through with it, and it was one of the best decisions I made in my life. I learned so much about solitude and the difference between being alone versus loneliness, and, you know, really learning how to be like Gordon Ramsay. Like that was the most fun thing of all, for sure.
Nice.
But thank you. But I also found a new restaurant as well called Grown, which is owned by Shannon Allen and also her husband Ray Allen, Miami Heat, the guy who won it for us. He has my heart forever. Best memory ever. But yeah, so I found more and more things along the way. I also learned how to cook and, you know, to take care of myself. But if I went out, for example, for like a steak dinner with my friends, steak restaurants are very good for people with food allergies because they're really just only grilling steaks, and I get like a side of sauteed spinach with olive oil, you know, a baked potato with no butter. Like you just learn the right places to eat, and you have to be assertive but not like aggressive. That's the best way to say it. Like you need to be clear that you're confident in saying that like this is important, but to not like pressure the other person, because I haven't been thrown out because of that, but people have been thrown out because of things like that, where they get like, well, if you do this, I'm going to sue you, and, you know, all these things. And, you know, that's where the whole legislation and all these things come into role, and just creating that awareness, because, you know, we people who have food allergies, I'm saying, like, we were born with this, we didn't ask for it, and, you know, we can't control it. So yeah, we're not trying to cause a bad time. So
you mentioned legislation. What kind of laws are there around food and food, you know, protection against cross-contamination or food safety? What's the government's role currently in this?
I'd say pretty limited to what would be, you know, nice, but there are more and more things coming out where there's courses on, you know, cooking with, you know, clean utensils, and just explaining cross-contact versus cross-contamination, which even it's a very new kind of concept, but basically cross-contamination is like the contamination of like bacteria and stuff like that, versus cross-contact, where cross-contact is like what I said earlier with like the steak and the shrimp on the same thing, the cross-contact of the proteins touching without the proper washing. So that's a new kind of buzzword for in the food allergy community. And yeah, there's new protocols, but as far as governmental stuff, there's nothing that I can think off the top of my head, which is kind of scary, you know, that I've been in that for so long, because there's nothing that's significant enough to really make you feel that comfortable without really asking how to, like, hey, cook it this way with that way in a different pot. And, you know, it's the back to the Russian roulette thing. You sometimes do have to put your trust in these people. And if you don't feel comfortable with that risk, then sometimes you do have to sit on the sideline, you know?
Yeah.
What do you think in an ideal world would be the government's role in this? Like, if you could see legislation that you want or policy that would be just absolutely perfect for food allergies, what would that look like?
So, I mean, what would be ideal? And for some things, of course, like it'd be hard to do this, but even just simply having like a separate area, something as simple as a separate area to prepare things, and color-coded pots and, you know, utensils and ingredients that are left in the fridge that haven't been touched by other people. Like, just, it's all about the cross contact of it. People don't realize the best example is like having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, where you use the knife for the butter or the peanut butter, and you also use it for the jelly. That jelly is completely ineffective to a person who has food allergies. That person, terrible reaction is, you know, awaiting them. So realistically, the legislation would look like just asking, hey, like, what kind of food allergies do you have? Hey, there's I forget what it's called, but there's a portable food prep thing that a lot of, for example, the restaurant Grown has, where if you do have that allergy, they'll pull it out from the bottom. It's like refrigerated, it's cleaned after every use, and they prepare it separately with those sets of utensils, and they get fresh ingredients, and that makes you feel like a rock star. You know, you walk in, you're like VIP there, you know, oh, that's him, like, let's get it out, special meal. And, you know, like, there are perks in that way, like, but legislation as well. One thing that has been going pretty well with airlines is that you can actually board early, which is a huge, huge thing for me. And everyone looks at me like, what is this kid doing boarding with the people, who are in wheelchairs and stuff like that? But I bring the wipes to, wipe down my seat. I've gotten many looks. People don't believe me, but I show them my documentation from my doctor saying I do have severe allergies. I need to wipe down. So legislation in terms of that, it's getting better, but pretty much just the awareness of it, having a separate area to prepare the food, and just like the education, like knowing what causes a reaction, because some people just really don't understand cross contact and how one simple thing could be life changing for someone with food allergies.
Is there any progress being made towards like curing food allergies, or where's the current research at?
Well, most of the research is at Food Allergy Research Education, which I had the pleasure of interning at. It was a blast learning about their their back end and meeting all the people, and they are doing tons of research, and that's where all the money's funded. We did with my mom, actually, we did the Fair Walk for a Cure, raise thousands of dollars, and that money's all going to advancing a cure. So there's always little tidbits of information like, oh, like we're getting closer, but there has not been that, crazy leap that, hey, this is it. So, still creating awareness, still, funding that, praying, that one day that could become a reality.
There is a lot of work being done in the food industry, where there's now a lot of products available. So many, much more than when Cody was little. There's companies called Enjoy Life. We've got Made Good. There's lots of brands of gluten-free pastas. Like, everybody's gotten on the bandwagon. Crackers are gluten-free. They have mayonnaise now that does not contain soy, which every time we find something without soy, Cody's like amazed. Like pretzels recently, right, Cody? Gluten-free pretzels with no soy. Soy is one of those weird allergies that a lot of people have. It's not an anaphylactic one, but it's just it's a crappy one. But that's what I've noticed. There's a lot more, at least convenience food available. He could grab a breakfast bar now. Sometimes at Starbucks, I notice there's maybe one bar he can eat. Used to just be a banana. Now I'm like, wow, you can have this chip. So every time I go to Starbucks or something like that, I'm finding more and more foods that are becoming available to people so that they can actually eat. But the selection is pretty slim pickings, but at least there's something. There used to be absolutely nothing. I did want to segue in about the legislation that Cody, they were talking about putting epinephrine in every restaurant. They're going to have some type of a machine, almost like a defibrillator. That's some kind of legislation that's out there, so that if somebody has an anaphylactic attack, they might not even know about it. I mean, you could be allergic to a bee sting and not know it. And you also can develop an allergy in your 50s. You can just become allergic to shellfish, at any time. It's weird. I don't know why it happens. The only other thing I thought of that you didn't mention, Cody, was there's a lot of restrictions on labeling on menus. Okay, so they do have to tell you. They're doing a lot of the gluten-free. They do have gluten-free menus now. A lot of the restaurants are putting, like this is dairy-free. So sometimes we go out to dinner, like let's say, what's that store down on Las Olas? Cheesecake Factory. They have a gluten-free menu. They have a soy-free menu. They have a dairy-free menu. Like, they actually come out with these menus. They're laminated. They hand them over to you, and it's getting better, but it's still not perfect.
Yeah. Do you know the number of Americans, or what percentage of people have food allergies?
Yeah, no, I could take that for sure. Yeah. From the research from 2011, there's 15 million people who have food allergies, with 6 million of them being children.
Oh, wow. And are these all food allergies, or is it broken down into anaphylaxis, or?
No, I don't think it's broken down into like specific like severities, but that number was just people who have like one or more food allergies, and the numbers are going to rise. It's crazy. So.
Yeah.
What's the relationship between food allergies and other types of allergies? Like Rose, you mentioned bee stings, but obviously there are other things like airborne respiratory allergies, things like pollen or animal dander. People are allergic to various medication. Uh, do you know what the relationship is there biologically?
I would take that one. I have another child, Cody's sister, and she has something called oral allergy syndrome, which is she has a little allergic reaction to certain foods. It's not anaphylactic. She doesn't really break out like Cody did, having these really severe reactions, but sometimes there's some swelling, itchy eyes, that type of thing. And for some reason, this oral allergy syndrome has something to do with the pollen in the air. And for instance, she's allergic to birch trees, which makes her very sensitive to certain fruits like apples, carrots, celery, and anything with like a skin, like peaches or those type of fruits. It's only she's only really affected by it at certain times of the year when the trees are in bloom. So that's called oral allergy syndrome. There's another one that is related to a latex allergy, which I just found this out recently. I have lots of friends who call me up for advice. I just happen to know quite a bit about food allergies and that type of thing. And it has a relationship with strawberries, which I never knew. I actually read it about a week ago. I was checking it out on WebMD. I don't advise anybody go over there and try and be a doctor, but I did tell my friend to take their son to the allergy doctor. And sure enough, she said, wow, I can't believe you put those two together, but that's because I read a lot. But that's more of like a seasonal allergy that affects certain foods. I actually have it myself. Certain foods make my throat a little itchy certain times of the year, but I'm not anaphylactic and I don't break out in hives. But I do have some symptoms, stuffy nose. I can't go near cats, those type of things. I don't see the correlation with food, but some of the outdoor trees, if you think about it, fruits grow on trees. So maybe it has something to do with that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. The oral allergy syndrome. We were talking before we had started recording about the fact that I was allergic to apples as a little kid, and your explanation just now reminded me of a detail that I'd forgotten. That I think we figured out that it was actually the skin on the apples that I was allergic to, and
right.
When the apples were cooked in something like applesauce, I was
exactly.
fine.
That's
But
exactly
yeah.
the way it works. And you can eat my daughter can eat cooked carrots, applesauce, but not a raw carrot. She'll break out in hives. Her lips will swell. It's very strange. That's, a lot of people have it.
I wonder, so they haven't found any specific genetic link, like a gene that it's tied to or anything?
Not that I know of. That would be great. That would be, groundbreaking if we could find a link. I know they look at something called eosinophils. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's actually when they draw your blood, they check your body for eosinophils, and that's like an allergic response. There's different types of blood. They look at different types of things. It's called an IEG, and Cody might know a little more about this as well. I mean, I've read a lot of blood reports, but obviously the higher the eosinophils, the more allergic you are. In fact, people have problems with their throat, that's becoming reactive. And it's a lot of times it's these eosinophils. You could breathe them in. It could be a dog dander. It could be a cat. It could be the trees, or it could be food or a medicine.
Yeah, that's interesting, because if we do find a genetic link, with new gene editing technologies, that might be
CRISPR-Cas9.
Yeah, might have a fix there. But yeah, Cody, is there anything else you wanted to say that you want people to know about food allergies? Because I know a lot of the work you do is geared towards helping people with food allergies, and what I wanted to do here is kind of branch out to people who don't necessarily have them, but to tell them how much it would help people like you, people with severe food allergies, for them to make a slight difference. So could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing to try to help people with food allergies, and just kind of sum up what the average person should take away from this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the most important point with, what the average person with with friends with food allergies, or you never know when you're going to meet someone with food allergies. So it's just simply, it's awareness and, being a good friend and asking if it's okay, even if you think it's not, like, it's always nice to ask and just to make sure, like any good friend would do. So that's something that has been imperative with, a lot of my friends. And that's why we have that such like a close bond. It really helps, bond people. So as far as, what I'm working on and what I'm doing, of course, like traveling around the country, talking, to families, to teens, to kids. And I'm also working on my own startup called Wander Without Worry, which stems from everything we've talked about my entire life, the hardships, going to school without lunch sometimes, I couldn't eat the school lunch. Traveling was the biggest mess ever. And basically, I'm working on Wander Without Worry, which is healthy, allergy-friendly meals that are delivered to your door, and in the future, delivering it, on flights to cruises, and just expanding that, because it's always important to feel safe with the food that you're eating, and that's what makes it so special to me. Because at Wander, the top 12 allergens will never enter the facility. They're sourced properly, they're packed properly, and it's just a dream for people with food allergies. And even if you don't have food allergies, and if you're the average person who doesn't have it that's listening to this, what we said earlier, that you never know if you truly have a sensitivity or an intolerance. Like I did an elimination diet, and I found out that, wow, I can't have gluten, I can't have strawberries, I can't have these things. So just working on that and helping as many people as I can, because it's something that I've lived with my entire life. I know exactly what it feels like, and there was such a gap in the market where I couldn't go anywhere, whether I'm traveling or, flying or whatever. And, I just never truly felt safe. So that's, really right now what I'm focused on, finishing up college and, just getting my message out there, because I just want to make people feel like they're not alone and that there are options out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's 15 million, right?
Yeah, and that number is only rising. So just try to help out as much as I can.
Yeah, Chase, did you have any other questions or anything you want to say?
I don't think so. I think that's all the questions that I had, and I feel like I knew there was a lot to learn, but now I know that there's even more to learn, and I'm happy that you guys have been able to enlighten me a little bit on this topic.
Yeah. So if there's stuff websites you want to plug, anything that you guys are doing, anywhere that people can reach you on social media, let us know right now.
Well, I wanted to mention something really exciting that I've done with Cody. We currently live in Weston in Florida, and we were, there's going to be an editorial coming out in September. There was a recent tragic death of somebody, a young girl, 15 years old, from Cypress Bay High School, who unfortunately grabbed a Chips Ahoy cookie at a party late one night. The labeling on the package was really hard to identify, and she thought it was safe. It was the same color as the regular Chips Ahoy, but these ones had Reese's Pieces. So she grabbed the cookie, immediately felt the tingling in her mouth, which is what typically happens. Did not have her EpiPen on her, or did have her EpiPen. I'm not sure of the details, but I believe she went home, got the EpiPen, took the second EpiPen. They called the ambulance, and she died an hour and a half later. It wasn't quick enough, and tragedy because of labeling that needs to change. It can't be the same. It has to be screaming, I've got peanuts, or I've got, especially nuts. It was just so sad. And we were approached by a local magazine, and they actually were doing an article on us before this happened. It's going to be out in September, right for back to school. And actually, we're going to be continuing this story for the next 12 months in our local magazine. And we're hoping that it will help people understand the most important thing. Obviously, read the labels. We need to change the labeling in some of these companies. Carry your EpiPen and your Benadryl always, and call 911 immediately. Don't wait.
Yeah. Is that something that's going to be published online that
Yes, it
people
is.
anywhere
And I
can read?
can,
So,
we'll attach it. It'll be September.
okay, yeah,
Okay.
great. Then we'll once you have links and everything, we'll put that in the show notes and we'll,
Perfect.
put that out there for everybody.
Awesome.
Help you
Yeah,
share it.
and Cody, is there a website for your company that you want to pitch, or
Yeah.
a social media?
Yeah, so it's wanderwithoutworry.com. If it'll be in the show notes, that's incredible.
Yeah, it will be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, that's that story right there. It's exactly the reason why, that I want to do this and help people. And it's just I can barely speak after hearing that. That could be, anyone, someone you love, and it was almost me, like it's a hard topic, and that's why we're so passionate about like what we're doing. So
It brings a lot of anxiety. In fact, I spoke with Cody about that just 2 weeks ago. He was feeling a little anxious, and I said, I kind of feel like it was probably the story, like to realize how
definitely
easily it
was.
could happen. And you don't even know
Yeah.
it. It's if you're just for 1 minute, you just take that chance. I mean, Cody doesn't
Yeah.
grab a baked good ever unless it's Enjoy Life. He just knows.
Yeah,
It's just, you can't
absolutely.
take a chance ever.
It's just you can never lose your guard, and
Never put your
you can
guard.
ask any kid in college about that, they wouldn't think twice, but just the fact that you can never ever ever lose your guard is something that you have to remember if you have severe food allergies. So I respect obviously all the other people who have food allergies, and for the friends who take care of their friends who have food allergies, it means so much to everyone. So
Yeah.
And the parents.
and the parents.
Yeah, so I want to thank you guys again for being on. And with that, I'd like to transition to the segment we like to call the off topic. And the off topic is basically your chance to talk about anything unrelated to the main topic. Could be something somebody said in line to you today at the grocery store, like, hey, food allergies aren't real.
No one's picked that option yet.
Yeah. I wonder why. A charity you'd like to pitch, or just a general idea, or philosophy, or something you've been thinking about. So, Cody, what do you have for us?
Awesome. Well, I would say right now the thing that's been on my mind the most has been minimalism, and in many, many different ways. Whether it's the way that we interact with our phones and limiting the options, so we don't get as attached, or things like that. It's cleaning out your house and getting rid of the things you don't use, because I've learned through minimalism that things should be done with purpose and deliberation. And sometimes you get caught up consuming so much, and you're not just living in the moment. So
What is minimalism?
minimalism would be the act of using things with like deliberation, and less is more, in a sense, where you realize that, hey, like I don't need 500 pieces of clothes. I could go with 50, or just cutting down on that. It's on your phone. Hey, I haven't opened this app for the past 3 months, but I still have it. And wait, I don't have storage anymore. So little things like that, just decluttering, so you could do what you need to do best. And you could ask any, teenager, high school kid, you look at their phone, you're swiping like 10 columns on their iPhone or something. And it's helped me, focus more. Like, for example, on my phone, I have like I have like 8 things on my home screen. That's it. And everything else is in a folder. Let's say, for example, like Facebook or Instagram, like instead of having it like the trigger right there in front of you, you have to, go on the spotlight, you have to search it. So you're not prompted to do that. And, with the way smartphones and these apps are designed, trying to get you hooked and whatnot, I feel like the best way to arm yourself is, in a sense, with minimalism and using exactly what you need, and not getting stuck in an infinite scroll loop like a lot of my friends get. So little things like that. So
one of the techniques that I'd heard about for sort of transitioning to a minimalist lifestyle in terms of possessions was it's more convenient if you're actually moving, but you basically pack everything up like you're moving, and only unpack things when you actually use them. And after a year or after 6 months or whatever, if you've still got stuff packed, get rid of it.
Yeah.
That's an extreme approach, but that definitely would help.
Yeah, obviously
Yeah.
there are exceptions, but
There always are exceptions to the rule.
Well, Cody, to segue on your minimalism, because I did watch the documentary with you recently, which was really a lot of fun. It reminds me of something. I recently got a place aside from my house where I go for fun, and I pack my little bag, and it's kind of small, but I love it. And actually, I find such peace there and tranquility, and I like to go sit and just listen to the water and ride my bicycle and do the simple things in life, because those are the things that give me the most joy, being with my family, sharing a meal, sharing a glass of wine, sharing a quote, helping somebody clean a closet, whatever it is I do, walk the dog. But those are the important things in life, the simple things in life, those are the moments in our life that are the most precious of all. So savor them.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like if you asked most people, they would agree with you. They'd say, "Oh, it is those things. It's family, just the simple, interaction with nature, just relaxing, being at peace."
Right.
Yet, yet they become hoarders and gather things and collect and have, tons of
Absolutely.
different things going on at once. And I wonder why that's such a trend. I think it's
I think it's our world. It's what they portray on television, get more, buy more. I actually, part of the documentary talked about how television keeps, they change the wardrobes every like 52 times a year or something like that. So if you buy an outfit one week, the next week it's already changed. So you think you got to get it. You got to get it.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of obviously our culture, like you're saying with television, or whatever parts of our culture are there to encourage us to consume and find meaning in novelty rather than meaning.
Absolutely. That's right there.
But
Seriously.
yeah, and I think it's almost like they've figured out a way to hack our psychology, because it's created an environment where that kind of behavior is easy. That kind of behavior is the default. If you're not paying attention, or if you're, regardless of what people say their values are, just like you said, Alex, where people can say, "Oh, I just enjoy the simple things," but then their actions,
liar,
their actions show something different. I think the cure really is to pay attention to your actions. Pay attention to, are you, going and listening to the water and enjoying the simple things? Like it sounds like you are, Rose. Or, are you somebody who just talks about enjoying the simple things and, can't help but download the next coolest app and buy, the next outfit or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just to add one thing onto that, because of what you were saying, I listened to, I think it was one of your beginning podcasts on mindfulness, and I really think that minimalism and mindfulness couple together like a marriage, and there was a quote from the movie the documentary that really stuck out, and it's that it's love people, use things, and not the other way around. And it goes in hand also with the hypocrisy of like, hey, like I am doing this thing, but at the same time I am, continuing to consume and to go down this spiral and whatnot. So I just think that mindfulness and minimalism go together extremely well in one, and you realize that it's in the connections with people where you truly find yourself, and not the other way around consuming.
Yeah.
Most of the time, with balance, of course.
I think it goes with stoicism as well. There's a quote, I just ran to my bookshelf and pulled this book because I knew exactly where this quote was. It's a quote by Seneca.
I love Seneca's awesome.
Yeah, it's this letter number 5 in his Moral Letters to Lucilius, and it's about moderation. And this quote, I have it like triple underlined. It says, "It is a great man who uses earthenware as if it were silver, and he is no less great who uses silver as if it were earthenware."
Wow.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. I like that one.
Oh, it just goes hand in hand. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was a great off topic, Cody.
Yeah.
And I wanted to thank you both again for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. And hopefully we'll have you back on again sometime. And Cody, good luck with your company.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to reading the articles in September. And what was the documentary that you were just talking about, Cody, about minimalism?
Literally called Minimalism on
okay.
Netflix.
No, The Minimalists. Wasn't it called The Minimalists?
No, it's called Minimalism.
Okay.
They call them. Oh, it's The Minimalists is the name of the people.
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
That's what it
there you
was.
go.
Yeah, it was really good.
Cool. And one more time, the name of your company.
Wander without worry.
All right.
Just as it sounds. .com if you want to go to the website.
Cool. Well,
I
yeah,
definitely
we'll
do.
have links to
There will
everything in
actually
the
be
show
a
notes.
documentary coming up very soon on the second phase of my life in terms of being in college and starting up the company. So if you want to learn even more about food allergies and support a great cause, always feel free.
Is that other documentary that you did on there?
Yes, the other documentary will be on there as well.
Okay.
So there will be a link to that.
Great.
Awesome. Well, yeah,
All right.
thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for listening. Check out our Patreon at www.patreon.com/switch_podcast. And there, for as little as $1 a month, you can hear embarrassing stories about Cody, other interesting questions we ask our guests that we didn't have time for, and much more. The Switch is produced by Mojo Filter Media, a company specializing in audio production for video games and interactive media. You can check out our website at www.mojofilter.media.